Hello and welcome back to the Wild Wisdom Wellbeing guest slot with me, Robin Harris of Equenergy Wellbeing Naturally. And today I am so excited. I have Nigel Streeter with me. Nigel from It's Okay to Talk. It's Okay to Say.
It's okay to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe the best thing, Nigel, is if I hand over to you and you can tell us a little bit about yourself and about where that title comes from, it's okay to say, and what that's kind of referring to, and then we'll start to explore it a little bit further.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Robin, for inviting me. It's very exciting and reasonably terrifying to be going live, but I'm fascinated by all this technology as well. It's okay to say came about because of the fact that I used to be a director of a small company called Streeter Head Productions, which doesn't exist anymore for various reasons. And we had a workshop, and we were doing a workshop in relation to mental health issues and just general well-being, not necessarily all to do with mental health issues, but how people could be as happy as they could be or as content as they could be in their circumstances. And we sort of went around the room, and they didn't have to say anything, they didn't have to declare anything if they didn't want to, but I was actually holding the session, I was facilitating the session. And when we got to the very end of this little sort of round robin thing, round robin, there we are. Good morning. Round robin. And we got to the end, and there's a young lady there, and she was talking about her son. And that was the issue for her in relation to her son's issues, or, some of the things that were going on in his life. And almost the very, very last thing she said, whatever, da. And then she came out with this thing, which was, of course, the most important thing is that people need to know that it's okay to say. And I immediately pounced on it. I said, what did you say then? People need to know it's okay to say. And I thought, oh, that's appeals to me no end, because of the fact it's like a really simple idea. And me and you have talked about simple before.
Yeah.
This love of simple and not complicating things and doing the thing that works. And if it's the obvious thing, do the obvious thing. So I said to her there and then, I said, I might pinch that actually, because of the fact that just about sums up my thoughts in relation to what I would like to do to try and help people if they're dealing with issues in their lives. And when I say deliberately simplistic, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, what happened from there was myself and my very good friend, Richard Bambury, who goes by the name, or the working name, of Fritzo Skenik, which is a skit on schizophrenic, because he is a schizophrenic and has been for many years. And I sat down with him, and we got this small little sort of fairly crazy sort of filmmaking duo, which talks about various issues and what people want to talk about, gives them a voice, what we call a visual voice. And I sat down with him and I told him about what had happened at this thing. And he said, well, that's a cracking idea, because it sums up how you can encourage somebody to take that first tiny step on that longer journey. How, if somebody is feeling like they're normal, and we were just discussing before we started about people's normals. Everybody has a different normal. There's no the normal. But if you feel like something is going wrong with your normal, then don't ignore it. Get out there, speak to a friend, speak to a doctor, speak to a member of your family, whoever, because you sort of deserve to have the opportunity to either head off at the pass, if you like, to use an old film term, what could be further down the road, or at least if you started on that journey already, you deserve to be able to get the help that you can. So if there's a double-pronged sword, if you like, either it can stop you going into what I understand to be chaos, because as a police officer, we talk about chaotic lifestyles, drug users, alcoholics, domestic abuse, and that sort of thing, And the idea is to help people to head off going in that particular direction. So it's okay to say, it's more of an idea that it's not a company, because I deliberately don't want to turn it into something like that. It's an idea, it's a theory in relation to helping people take that first small step onto that longer journey, either to avoidance, like preventative, or to recovery. So that's where it actually came from.
Fascinating. So can you tell us, you talked a little bit about the fact that you were a police officer. And can you tell us a little bit about your experience that led you to this deep interest and passion about well-being, particularly our kind of internal well-being?
Well, when I was 20, I had a choice to make, and the choice was between going to what was then quaintly called drama college and becoming a police officer. And being as I was 20 years of age, I took what I thought at the time was, you know, you're only young and you want life to be exciting and all that sort of thing. And I took what I thought was the boring option. And it turned out to be a fantastic option because I got to retire at 50 with a pension, which I'm genuinely very, very grateful for, because it means now I can do all the things in relation to these sort of issues, in relation to filmmaking, in relation to running my small company, and I also run something called Film Focus Wales, which we might get to talk about a little bit later on, which is the thing that came after Streets Ahead Productions. And again, that's about people in community filmmaking talking about issues that they think are important. I was a uniform, not uniform police officer, but an operational police officer for 24 of those 30 years. And the reason I think that I have some sort of right to talk about these things and try to show people that I have something that can help them is because of the fact that I've been through those sort of situations as a police officer that most people don't go through. Fire officers do, paramedics do, doctors do, and frontline sort of NHS people do, and what have you. But most people don't sort of see and hear and do those particular things. And in about 2004, 2005, it all collapsed for me. And I was what was considered to be one of the stoical ones. I was the strong roof. I was the one that was going to be, yeah, whatever, I can take it and what have you. And if I could just briefly tell you about the circumstances, is that okay?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So I was feeling unwell and I didn't understand why. And at the time, I'd just been appointed as the community safety manager for the Vale of Glamorgan division. And I occasionally had to cover in the custody office, which is a very, very stressful environment. You're dealing with people who are, shall we say, not so friendly on occasions, and there's a lot of stress, plus the fact that you've got lots and lots of legal responsibilities to carry out this, that, and the other. So you're very, very accountable. And I went to work on nights on the one night, and I got to the little keypad downstairs, the security pad. And I said before, if it's a police station, it probably is 1, 2, 3, 4, isn't it? You know, it's that secure, isn't it? It's like, you know. So I went to press the number, the first number, and I sort of hesitated and I stopped. And I didn't know why. I thought, well, this is strange. But anyway, I pressed the numbers and I went in and went into work. And then the next night, I was getting ready to go on nights again, and everything fell apart for me. And this is the stoical one. This is the strong roof. It's not going to happen to me. Oh, no, this doesn't happen to me. It happens to other people. And all I can say to that is, it can definitely happen to you. And I found out to my own expense the fact that I'd been storing this stuff for an awful long period of time. And as you explained to me, and the most important thing I want to say about this is for people to understand, when you talk about PTSD, it's like a blanket term for a whole suite of different types of well-being and mental health sort of problems and stuff like that, right? And PTSD didn't actually sort of gain prominence or get a proper name until after the Falklands War in 1982, when it was recognized as a genuine condition of sorts. And I'm trying to sort of put it into a context now. I was getting ready for work, and I collapsed, and it came completely out of the blue because I hadn't realized that I was not well, you know, and I couldn't walk, and I went to lie on the bed. I couldn't get off the bed. In actual fact, we were talking to you before about a film we made afterwards about my story, which was called Urgent Assistance Required, and it tells a dramatized version of this particular story. And then I was really, really scared and very confused. My head was all over the place and what have you. And I was swearing at my children, which I would never, ever do. And they were crying and upset, what have you. And the point I'm trying to make is the fact is this wasn't going to happen to me. I was okay. And if people don't look after their sort of physical and mental welfare, these things build up over a period of time. It is not true to say that you have to have a traumatic event. It can happen that way, and it quite often does. But for me, it was this building up effect, this weight on the roof, and the roof just collapsed and just fell in. So I think that because of my own personal people use the word lived experience, right? I never understand that, because you can't have a non-lived experience, can you? It's just your experience, you know? And also the things that I went through, I can empathize with people who have levels of stress and trauma, and the fact it's actually happened to me, and I've lived through that for a period of 5 months. And we were talking previously about this dissociation, this very, very strange feeling where you're almost a second behind yourself, watching you live your life. Because when you get up every morning, you just are, you know, you don't be anything, you just are you, sort of thing, you know. And the reason I went into this was because I believe, having had that experience as a police officer, and having had that experience with someone who was actually, so I don't like to use the word suffered. Suffered is not the right. What's the word we could use? I don't want to say experienced again, but you don't suffer this thing. It just happens to you, and you cope with it, and you get better, and you do the right things, you know. So we call it experience, right? Having experienced these things as well, I think it gives me a platform to talk to other people professionally and on a voluntary basis occasionally, in relation to what they can do and how they can control the way that their mind works. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a therapist, I'm none of those things. I spent 30 years in what we was talking about earlier on, that expression I can't stand, but actually says the thing. It's the school of life people talk about, you know. And that's why I believe that I have something to offer to people on a practical basis, to try and help them to be as best they can be in any given circumstances.
Absolutely. And like we were saying before we went live, talking about the school of life, I think that people are their own experts on how they feel, on what their experience of their current situation is. And doctors and therapists and professionals have great tools, and some or more of those tools might be of benefit to the person, but only the person themselves will know which ones feel right, which ones, when they use them, actually have a benefit. And there might be different tools at different times. There might be some they're ready for now, some that will be of more benefit later, but only they can know that. So I think it's a risk sometimes when there's the phrase, give our power away, and we listen too much or place too much emphasis on what the professional says, rather than listening to our own inner wisdom that goes, yes, that feels right for me, or no, actually, that's not something that feels right for me right now.
Yeah.
No matter what you say, it just doesn't feel right for me right now. And this is kind of where I was at the beginning of my journey. People were offering me things, and none of them felt right. And I was trying them and then beginning to think it's my fault, rather than thinking these aren't the things for me at this time. There is something, if I keep on looking, I will find it, which I did, thankfully. But I think also seeing somebody like yourself, if I was in that experience of feeling, I just don't know where I'm going, I didn't even know I was ill, and here I am experiencing all these terrible things. Am I falling apart? Is my life coming to an end, or is it going to be worth living beyond this point? But to look at somebody like you and think, oh, I am still normal. You know, it's not that I'm going crazy. Despite how I might be feeling, it's not that I'm going crazy. There is an end to this. I can come through this. So I think absolutely somebody who has lived experience, somebody who's been through it and knows from within what it's like, is one of the best people. I love the reason that I chose mentor from the title that I use for myself is because of a belief around what Oprah Winfrey talked about, that a mentor is somebody who shows you the hope within yourself, which I think is exactly what you do, and what It's Okay to Say does. It says to people, it is okay. Whatever you're feeling, it's okay. It's okay to share it. It's okay to experience it. It may not be comfortable, but it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It's just something that you work through, and that there is an end. You can work through it and come out the other side.
Interestingly, then you talk about the mad thing, inverted commas, you know, and it's a term which is very derogatory in many respects, but it's something which people tend to understand the word, but it doesn't mean a thing. It can mean lots and lots of different things. Because I would actually I'd suggest that I actually did go through a form of madness for a period of time. But what is that? How does that, you know, how do you describe something which is just an altered state of mind temporarily, which was very distressing, but I've spoken to you about it before. The good thing for me, I came out the other end and I had a much better appreciation of the world around me. I'm looking at the sunshine. I'm looking at the hedges. I'm listening to the birds sing. I'm sort of get up in the morning and think to myself, I'm seeing the world in a different way. Now that's worn off slightly over the years, but I've still got a much greater appreciation of the reality of life around me. And I just think that's quite fascinating, because I don't call it a silver lining, because it's not something I would want anybody to ever go through personally, because it's a very, very unpleasant experience. But there is, like you say, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is an objective, and you can actually feel it over a period of time, sort of coming back together. And do you remember I just mentioned about this dissociation? Over a period of time, you can actually feel things slowly but slowly pulling back together until you get to a point you wake up one morning and you just are you again, you know? I still have bad periods now, but I know what it is, and they only last 1 or 2 days, maybe, you know? And I still get that feeling, like that, what I call the hunger, that antagonized feeling, that nasty feeling inside. But I know how to deal with it now, and hopefully, like I say, professionally and voluntarily in certain circumstances, I hope to help people with those things. But the big thing for me is when I do a presentation or I do a session or I work with somebody, is I say to them, I don't have any magic wands. There is no fairy dust. There's no quick solutions. And I am not going to sort this out for you, because you will see people who will be online and they will tell you, I can sort this out for you. Just relax. I'll make this all right. I don't believe in that, but I do believe that I have the experience and the background to work with somebody, to help somebody so that they can sort it out for themselves. Because it goes back to what you were saying about everybody has to find their own solution. You may have the same object, you may have the same problem, but the solution isn't necessarily the same. So everybody's normal is different. And that's what I always talk to people about. And I say, well, there's only one person in the world that's you. Presumably, unless there's reincarnation, you're never going to be here again. And you have your own unique experiences and you have your own unique solutions. And I am here to help you to find those solutions through my own experience. And that's the way I look at it. I'm not a magician. I am somebody who I think I have the experience to help people to get to be the best they can be.
And that is one of my passions as well. And I think that, yes, we are all unique. And there's a very special kind of reason why we are unique, that we have our unique gifts to bring and unique things to share. And so there's always a value in our uniqueness. And in order for that to be best expressed, it's to help us to step more fully into that and to allow it to shine, even if it's a little bit weird, a little bit quirky, a little bit wacky, a little, little bit wild, a little bit mad. And like you say, what is mad other than an altered state of consciousness? And perhaps some of the forms of madness, we wouldn't want to stay there for too long. But at the same time, there's the kind of fun madness. And for me, my journey allowed me to see the fun and the learning and the growth that these experiences bring. They may not be very comfortable at the time, but, and also when I was saying earlier about that you get to the end of it, I don't know that there's really an end. You come out of the darkness of the tunnel, but like you said, you still have moments maybe of feeling back in that hunger. But for me, that's just, oh, there it's back again. What does it have to teach me this time? Where have I maybe still got a little bit more to learn, a little bit more to grow, or just I needed that little reminder. My body's saying, whoa, take a breath, slow down. You're feeling stressed again. You know, you need to pay attention.
I think that it's a big part of this for me is to do with what you just said. It's to do with realizing that it's different strokes for different folks. It's not one size fits all. It's not that you, I, or anybody else who works in this particular field could come along and just say, right, here it is. It's a blue box and it's 6x6 and it's got a lid on. And it's not those things. It's whatever that person particularly needs at that particular time. And interesting enough, you mentioned earlier on again, which is like a really, really important theme to me, is I'm doing a presentation at the moment now. And funny enough, I was about 2.5 hours on this the other night and it didn't save. And I then had an opportunity to either practice what I preach or to actually throw things at the screen and go, you know, but I actually decided, it's what I call stick it in the box, right? And I'm talking about looking at a problem, at a situation, looking at what you can actually, in bite-sized pieces, what you can actually not deal with, stick it in the box, just leave it there, because you're just wasting the time and energy trying to sort something out that you can't sort out for various reasons. There's a stuff to sort out later. Stick it in box. Don't mess about with it now. The box hasn't got a lock on it. You can come back and you can take it back out and look at it. Now you're left with the stuff that you can sort out. You're left with the stuff that you can give all your energy to start that journey, which goes back yet again to it's okay to say the beginning of that journey and say, what is the first step I need to take now? And then give all that positive energy towards sorting that particular thing out. And if you need to go into other people around you, if you need to go out into the world around you, this is where me and you talk in different terms about the same thing. Then by all means, go and get some help or ask someone's opinion or check in with someone and say, this is what my situation is at the moment now. Can you help me with it? Because I came from a macho background in the police force where to show weakness was a bit pathetic. It was a bit sort of, oh, you know, this is a man's job and all that sort of thing. It's not the same now. It's gone, again, the conversation we've had, possibly in some ways, it's gone too far the other way now. But it was never right that people couldn't get help and assistance when they had trouble, when they were struggling, because of the fact that it was a weak, stupid thing to do sort of thing. But I disregarded that when this happened to me, because I thought to myself, I can't do this on my own. I do need some help. Firstly, from South Wales Police, which with one or two exceptions I got. And secondly, from people around me, from my family, from my friends, and from my doctor, who was absolutely excellent. He told me about the dissociation. He told me about the strong roofs thing, you know, these layers and layers and layers of stress.
Can you just explain that a little bit more in depth and to talk about the different kinds of roofs, because people watching might not have heard that theory, that concept before?
Right. Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah. Well, I always thought, and again, as part of what I do, I talk to people about looking out at the world and the world looking back at you. And sometimes little Nigel Streeter, who's 7 years old, is looking out from in here, because I'm the only one in here. There's nobody else in here with me. And I'm looking out through these windows here at the world, and I'm just sort of a bit confused. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get through the day? Now, I'm a man of a certain age now, but I still feel on occasions that that little boy is in there and he's a bit confused by what to do. So I then, especially the last few years, have received feedback from various people who have told me that they would never, ever think that was what was going on in my head. I come across as being stoical, as being strong, as being... and again, you've got to get past this embarrassment thing about what you're good at and what you're not good at. And you've got to realize that you have weaknesses and you have strengths. And I'm an intelligent man. I'm presumably fairly well spoken. I don't know if I've proven that today or not. But, you know, I do know what I'm talking about. So their perception of me is completely different to my occasional perception of the world outside from my point of view. And everybody thought that Nigel Streeter was a strong roof, or the majority of people would have thought that. And they are the roofs that are really sort of well built, and they take these layers of tension, stress, trauma, whatever word you want to use. And over a period of time, every one of these only weighs a couple of pounds or a couple of ounces maybe, but it all accumulates. And over a period of time, if you've got someone who is not such a strong roof, which is nothing wrong with that, but just a different type of personality, they will give and they will bend, and the tension will probably just dissipate. But if you've got someone who's supposedly a strong roof like me and lots of other people that I know, and as it happens, lots of people who work in the emergency services, because I think it's the sort of personality that's attracted to that type of role, then there's the strong roof, which is constantly getting this snow on it. This I saw this today, I saw that today. Some really sort of upsetting things maybe that you deal with very professionally. And I talk about the blue light moment. I talk about police officers, paramedics, fire officers. They got this, and they click and they get on with what they need to do, and it's very, very, very analytical. And it's like, I need to do this now. It's ordered and it's sensible. And then when you get to the end, you go, and then maybe at that particular point you go, oh God, wasn't that terrible? Oh, wasn't that awful? But whilst you're doing it, you're subverting all that natural feeling about what's going on. We also talked about the fact that in the police service these days, they don't tend to work shift systems like we used to. And we used to look after each other, physically and mentally. We looked after each other's welfare, and a lot of that has gone these days anyway. But anyway, sorry, I'm rambling on a little bit now. So I was this strong roof, and I've got this stuff coming down on me all the time. And as a doctor explained it to me, he said, you have a huge weight on top of your roof because you are very, very sturdy. But there will come a point where there will be too much weight for you to actually stay intact. And that's what happened to you, because you've waited and waited and waited all these years, and you've crashed big time because you don't have that flexibility. And that can be a negative thing sometimes, because some people who are more flexible can be more able to sort of push these things off. So they spread
more
the
resilient. More resilient.
Yeah, they can be. Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, but the people who are not as strong can be stronger. So sorry, go on.
It's the concept of being an oak tree versus, I think it's a bamboo, but the oak tree being very solid and it doesn't bend in the wind. Yeah. So sometimes breaks.
Yeah.
Versus the bamboo that will go with the wind, and then when the wind stops, it's still upright. And I think you were saying about how people who are strong-roofed people may be drawn to emergency services and that kind of role, but equally, I think the people who run those services will be looking for people who come across as being very strong and very sturdy, and I can deal with all of these stresses. And they're probably trained as well, like you saying, that moment, that blue light moment where they just go into, I need to do these, I need to be analytical, I need to do my role. And then when it's all over, they're left, I'm out of role now, and that was pretty horrendous. Where do I go with that? Where do I offload that? Where do I find the place that I can deal with it, process it? And you know, and a lot of the people watching probably know as well, that I volunteer with a group called FAST, which stands for Frontline Assistance for Stress and Trauma. We've been with Wendy, indeed. Yeah. And we've been supporting people like the police, the NHS staff, emergency services, with the traumas and with the post blue light moment, with the off, oh my goodness, that was horrendous, what do I do with it? Because, and we're expecting more of this, that people now, nurses and so on, they're beginning to experience PTSD because of all that they've seen throughout the pandemic. And you mentioned also the video that you created to be a dramatization of your experience. I will be sharing that as well in the group because it's a really, really good video to watch. I mean, having worked with people with trauma, knowing a little bit about PTSD, I still find that video being really helpful in understanding and having words, vocabulary. Sometimes we've talked about this, I think, a little bit before. It's okay to say it's great, but sometimes I don't even know what to say. I don't know how to say it. So having things like your video and like you going out and talking to people, it gives people vocabulary, it gives them references and a framework to explain what it is they're experiencing.
Well, we did another one, which is a documentary in the meta cinema style, I'll have you know. Sounds very posh, doesn't it? But all that means is that real cinema shows the workings of behind the scenes and all that sort of, that's all it means. And that was me interviewing Fritz about his schizophrenia, and it's to do with creative therapy. And he hasn't been on any antipsychotic drugs since the 1990s. And that's purely and simply because of the fact that he keeps himself occupied. He's a poet, he's a writer, he's a musician, he's a filmmaker with me, he's a filmmaker with my group. And it's like an alternative way, and I don't mean alternative as in alternative medicine, but it's literally an alternative way of somebody occupying their mind in a positive manner. So
and in such a creative way as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit literally quite strange to work with because he's got this. I'm the organized one. I'm the one that says we're going to do this on this particular day, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to make it happen, because that's the way that my head works. But he's all over the place, but he's so creative, and he's sort of thinking, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? So it turns out to be a really, really good partnership because you've got the two elements, the yin and the yang sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you don't have to sort of make some Hollywood movie type thing, because I don't know if it's going to happen, but you're aware of the fact that I suggested to Wendy for FAST that we might, when we get out of COVID incarceration, we might be able to make a sort of very simplistic documentary about what FAST does. To me, that's what community filmmaking is about, because you don't have any money. Everybody does it because they want to do it, because they got a passion for it. And it's a good way of getting the message out there in relation to what these organizations do. So realistically speaking, once we get out and about again now, I mean, I've got about 4 or 5 things in my mind at the moment in relation to making short films about this, that, and the other. And there's another interesting one, funnily enough, is called People and Places. And it's just simply to do with finding a character in a location. And I'm thinking of a particular one over Barry Island at the moment. He is aware of it. And this not, if he happens to be watching, it's not going to come as a huge surprise to him. And speaking to those characters and telling a short history of those places and why they're attracted to those places. And the reason for that in the background is the fact that people get pleasure out of what's around them, who they associate with, what they see, what they hear, what they smell, everything about places, you know. So that's another little thing we got going at the moment. And this is all to do with promoting well-being. It's all to do with doing whatever it is your thing is, either with my help or without my help. Whatever floats your boat, whatever it is that does it for you, don't be scared of pursuing that. Go after it. Because what's the worst thing you could do, really? You can supposedly fail. Well, I don't believe in failure. I believe in an opportunity to learn. Because
fail, FAIL, first attempt in learning.
Oh, that's a clever one.
I find that recently, and I thought, oh, I love that.
First attempt. I'll pitch that as well now. But yeah. I mean, if you look at a failure, and again, in some sessions I talk about levels of failure, because you can miss by that much, but officially it's a failure, or you can just succeed by that much. Officially it's a success. But there's this whole spectrum of supposedly success and failure. But you can use along that line, you can use every part of that to say, what did I learn, or what should I have learned from that experience? And that's how I hopefully can show people that they can have a positive attitude towards what they do, and they can keep going, and they can say, all right, so that didn't turn out to be as good as I wanted to be, but what's it given me as opposed to what's it taken away?
And another way of looking at failure is feedback. So if we replaced, because I'm passionate about the power of the words that we use, and about reframing things so that it's more uplifting and more supportive. So if we stopped saying I failed or this was a failure and instead talk about feedback, and who gets to decide, like you're saying, this, we could fail by this much, we could succeed by this much, it's all a spectrum. Who gets to decide where who said that's the line?
Yeah.
And I know that if it's an exam or something, then the exam board, the examining body, they decide where that line is. But in life, it's kind of arbitrary, isn't it? And who's to say that I failed at getting that job, but it was a success because it meant I didn't have to do the job that I would have hated for the rest of my life. So for me, it's just, it is feedback. That didn't work quite how I had hoped or expected at the time. But what did I learn from it? Did I learn more about myself? Did I learn more about what I actually do want or don't want? And you said you chose at the age of 20 to go into the police, but that it turned out to be amazing and has given you now the space at the age that you're at post-retirement to go and do all of the things that you're passionate about.
Which I could do then for financial reasons or for other reasons.
Yeah. So, I don't think these things are failures in themselves. I think they're a label that we have been conditioned to put on things. And because maybe it's as well, like you were saying about the little us inside, the 7-year-old us, or whatever age we, is looking out of the eyes at that time, and the world, and it has decided, something in the world has decided that this is the bar you need to get beyond. But that's their bar. We don't have to buy into that. We can have, what is my idea of success for me in my life? It might not be money. It might not be around a job. It might be that I'm happy. It might be that I'm feeling really fulfilled. It might be that I meet lots of wonderful and exciting people.
But it's realistically, I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier on, and we're talking about it's sort of horses for courses. It's whatever that particular person wants. And I never presume that I have the specifics available to me to say, this is what you need. I can sit down with people, and I do sit down with people, and I say to them, tell me a little bit about yourself, tell me about the way you think, and tell me what it is you think that you want to do right now. And it goes back to the sticker in the box thing again. And they say, well, let's see what we can put away that you can't sort out. Don't worry about it. Don't fret about it, because fretting never solves the problem. Actions and attitudes solve problems. And what's the stuff that you can actually put away for now because it's either too difficult to do for now, or it's just too much on top of what you can do. And if you talk to people in those terms and you say, right, okay, let's have a look at whatever percentage it is of what we've got left that you can sort out now, take that first step. It's okay to say, go on that journey. Then that is manageable. And I spoke to you before. I think I mentioned about the elephants. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe in this presentation I'm working on now, I'm using sort of anecdotes and I'm sure I did tell you about different animals and what have you. And one of them is called How to Eat an Elephant. And everybody, or a lot of people, know the answer, which is one bite at a time. And if you unwrap that and you say, well, what does that mean? It's a nice little saying, but what's it actually refer to? And it refers to the fact is you cannot eat a whole elephant in one go. You have to take those first steps. And if I can put people's mindset around the fact that this is the process that I think that you should be following, that's my biggest contribution, is to sort of support them and say, whoa, hang on now, what did we say about how to eat an elephant? Right, okay, let's forget that. It's still in the box at the moment. It's not locked. Okay, we get that out later. But what are we dealing with now? And people, you're talking about people's internal assets. You're talking about what they already know realistically, but they need someone to come along to first of all remind them, or possibly to actually say, you know this, don't you? And some people go, no, I didn't know I knew that. I said, what do? You've got lots and lots of things going on internally, abilities, assets, and stuff like that, which make you a very, very almost dangerous type entity in this world, because you are unique. You are the only person who thinks the way that you think. You're the only person who sees what you see. Use that as a means to make things as good as they can be. But I never talk about things being perfect, and I always talk about in the circumstances, because again, I talk about circumstance. I'm not talking about fate now, because I don't necessarily believe that things are preordained, but I do believe there's hundreds or thousands of things every day or every year in your life which dictate the direction in which you're going to go. Again, exactly the same principle. Some of those things are unchangeable. Don't bother with them. And it's difficult. Like I was saying about this 2.5 hours, right? Fail to save. And I've wasted 2.5 hours of my life. Well, I haven't wasted it, because I can remember most of it to do it again. But I'm thinking, practice what you preach tonight. Don't get too wound up about this, and you've just wasted all that time. And then I was so pleased with myself, because I'm doing what I ask other people. I don't tell anybody to do anything. I'm asking these other people to think this way. And I was actually quite chuffed with myself. I thought, I've done it. I put it in the box. I can't get it back. It's gone. Let's think about what I need to do next. What do I need to do to record the stuff, in writing or on a dictaphone, so that I can do it again? And all I'm asking people to do is take that stress off themselves, take that worry off themselves, so that they can have the easiest life possible, mentally and physically, and keep themselves as well as they can be. That's what it's about for me, really. That's more or less sums it up.
And I love that idea of the box, in that there's been the saying, particularly around the recent situation with COVID, about pay attention and put your energies into the things that you can control rather than the things that you can't. So when you're in that situation, and to me, the things that you're putting into that box are the things that I can't do anything about those right now. They're out of my control.
Or so there's certain things you can never do, because they're to do with politics, the world, they're to do with all those things. And they're all part of the issue. They're all part of the problem, but they're not for you to solve. You're just wasting your time putting your energy in that direction. Look at the things you can do.
Absolutely. So for me, that's the I can't control it, I'll put it in the box. Things, concepts, ideas, whatever, that they're there in my head, and I'm worrying about them. But like you say, it's a waste of energy. And where my attention goes, my energy flows, and the focus grows. So if I'm worrying about it, I'm putting energy into it, and it's just going to seem bigger and bigger and bigger. Whereas if I can put it in a box, put it aside, I might go on down my own little, this is what I can do, this is what I can do. Maybe I need to go back and just check my box. Oh, it's gone. Or it's gone down to something so small that I can just chuck it. I'm not interested in that anymore. So it's not even that it's there in the box and it's still needing my attention, or it's going to pop its head out of the box, or it's festering away in there. It might actually, exactly. It might actually be that I'm growing all of this stuff that is really lighting me up and uplifting me and energizing my day, and then I go back and, oh, what was I ever worried about that for? And they say, don't they, if you're not going to be worried about it in 5 years' time, why are you worrying about it now?
But that's so difficult to do, Steve. But I've seen people do it. I mean, it's a natural human instinct to want to sort of look at the whole thing. And I've got this little scale that I use in this presentation, and it's as simple as this, right? And this, if you've got 100% of problem, 100% of effort, the ratio is 1 to 1. If you can get rid of 50% of that by putting it in the box, right? And I've even got a little theme tune, like a quiz show, right? And this all sounds very simplistic and very, I love simple, right? As I said before, and it sounds childish, but it puts it in people's mind. And if you say there's going to be this little theme tune, and it's going to be put it in the box, like a little game show, right? And then people think, oh, that's ridiculous, that's silly, but I remember what it is, what the message was, right? So if you then get rid of 50% of it, you're then attaching 100% of effort to 50% of the problem. It's a ratio of 2 to 1. If you can get rid of 2/3 of it, it's a ratio of 3 to 1. So you're more likely to have enough energy and enough positive attitude towards something to solve the bit that you can solve. And when you explain that to people, they really think, yeah, you're right, yeah. all this energy is dissipated on stuff which is unsolvable or not solvable now, I'm actually giving less of my energy, less of my effort to the bit that I can do. And you explain that to people, you say, yeah, he's right. He does know what he's talking about. You know?
And also it explains why when we give all our energy to something that we can't do anything about, but we're banging our heads against that brick wall, we're exhausted because it's not moving and I'm putting 100% of my energy into it. Whereas if I have 100% energy and 50% or 25% or whatever of problem or issue or challenge, then once I've dealt with it, I've still got so much energy in my bank. What else can I do with my energy? What can I do that's fun with my energy?
And then go and have a look in the box. And in the section which was leave it till later, you say, shall I take that out now? I've solved the previous bit. I can now look at this bit here. And then you might say, no, I'm not going to do that now. Or you might say, yeah, I've got this energy left over. I'll now attend to the bit that I put away temporarily.
And sometimes dealing with that first bit, dealing with those other bits, I have learned something. So that energizes me. And also helps me to grow and gives me more tools for the next challenge, because a lot of these tools are transferable skills, aren't they?
Yeah.
We've used them on one issue, but then when something similar comes up in the future, gosh, I've got a lot of tools that I can use. Plus I'll just learn a little bit more from this one because it's slightly different. And to me, that it makes life exciting. And there's no boredom, is there? It's just, I've got all these tools and I'm adding more.
This is not a no-sum game because you don't just stay in the middle. Because what happens is if you experience these things and you haven't, I hesitate to say learn because that sounds patronizing, but if you haven't discovered how to control the way that your mind looks at these particular things, then it doesn't just stay there. What happens is it becomes negative and it's more stress, more stress, more stress, more stress. Strong roof thing again, right? You get to a point where you crack. But if you can sort something out, even if it's only 50% of that issue, positive, 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 positive. Look what I did, aren't I clever? Look, I sorted this out, sort of thing. So it's not just sitting there in the middle. It's not going to, because it's either going to be good or bad. And if you can sort if it's already happened, you can't make it unhappen. That's the stuff in the corner of the box, right? You could never go back. So if you then have a situation where you can sort part of it out, you go, oh wow, all that worked. I can do that. That's great. Then go back to the next bit or not, as the case may be at that particular time, depending on how you feel. But it does give you, as you were just saying, that positive energy about the fact is I've sorted the immediate stuff out I need to sort out. It could be stuff which is a danger to life. It's worse. Or in a lesser way, it could be something which is going to be financially injurious, I was going to say. That's what I get when I start using fancy words, see, too many in a sentence. But it could be something that's going to have a financial effect on you. Or it could be something which is going to affect your family. But it makes you feel good. It gives you a positive energy once you actually sort that thing out. So if you can split these things up to make them manageable, I think personally that you've got part of the answer how you keep your stress levels low. That's my theory.
And it's very empowering, isn't it, to know I did that. That was me. That was my skills. That was my being able to work it out. All those processes, I was able to feel into what I needed. I was able to work out which tools to use. I was able to work out how to use them to address that issue. I've learned that. I have that in my resource kit now for the next time. I just
said you can't make it unhappen. A lot of people see. Also, sorry to keep going about this, but I've been, like I say, sitting here for hours working on this particular session, and I talk about the fact that I'm not going to give too much away, but anyway, it's one of the most destructive things in the English language is I wish and if only. Yeah. Because they both have no meaning, because you can wish something and nothing will happen. You can look at something and use what you know to make something happen differently. That's fine. And if only, well, if only is useless because it's already happened. If only this had happened, if only I'd met this person or had this or whatever, you know. And all you're doing is wishing your life away, really, whereas what you should be doing. I know this sounds terribly analytical, but it does work. It really genuinely does work. And you take that particular situation and you do exactly the stuff that we've just been talking about now. And it does give you that feeling of, I couldn't stop something from happening. That's it. Stick it in a box, right? Okay. So you do that stuff, but you've succeeded. We were talking about success and failure earlier on, right? It might not be the succeeding in dealing with the whole thing, but you've succeeded in dealing with the bit that is immediately available for you to sort out. And that gives you a great energy, whether that's how you would describe that. Is that a physical energy, a mental energy? I don't know. But it does make
there a difference?
Like, it's one of them, and it's one of those, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think because we're mind, body, and spirit, that in a sense, the energy is across the board. So whether we feel it like internally or we feel it, or whatever that might be, I think it's just energy in our bank that we then have to draw on, whether that's as a new skill or actual effort or whatever it might be. And energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be changed from one type to another. So
it can be stretched to the point of breaking energy. Really, really can. I mean, that goes back to what I was talking about earlier on about what happened to me, and this so-called resilience, whereby you just take it on, and that's sapping your energy all the time. And in my particular case, I didn't know what was going to happen to me, and it came as a big frightening surprise. But you know, it is this drawing all the time, this sucking this energy out of you sort of thing, until you get to a point where there's nothing left in the tank. And that's when it all goes wrong. So if I can, I'm in a position whereby I can help people to either prevent going into that chaotic place, or if they've started down that road, to try and give them something so they can cope with it, then as far as I'm concerned, it's job done.
Absolutely. And that's why I talk about stress buckets. You talk about strong roofs. I talk about stress buckets and helping people to feel into how high is your bucket, because so many times we are those strong roofs where we've just, I'm fine. We're not aware. We turn down our volume on what the body is telling us, or we have that disconnect between the head and the body. So we're not paying attention. We're not feeling how high the level of stress is in our bucket, and we're not being able to flex to let out some of that stress so that it goes down and we can then have access to all those resources that you were talking about. It's not a magic wand, and it's not about looking outside all the time. You can ask for help outside, but it's really about drawing on your own toolkit, on all of these things that you have within you. Like you were saying, sometimes people go, I didn't know I had that. For me, it's like you're saying, helping them to see it.
But I feel as though I'm coming along and I'm polishing the kit, sort of thing. I'm not giving it. I'm not giving them anything new. I genuinely don't feel that I'm giving them anything they don't already have. I might help them to hone what they've got. I might help them to develop what they've got. But I'm not giving them the thing in the first place. I genuinely don't feel that. And you will see people all over the internet, and they'll say, I'll make this right for you. I'm going to do this. You just sit back, have a cup of coffee, and I'll make your world wonderful. Well, because it's a live broadcast, I won't say what I was just going to say, but you know what I mean. It's a load off, isn't it? So really speaking, I'm there to metaphorically hold their hand and say, have you thought of this? Have you thought of doing it this way? Have you thought of, would this work for you? Because again, I'm not there to say, this is the answer. This is the prescription. No, you can't do that, because of what we were talking earlier on about people's own normal, and the fact that how many billions of people have there been in the history of the world? I got no idea, but billions and billions. Every single one of those people has led a different life. Not one of them has led the same life. Not one of them has actually exactly the same thoughts throughout that life. And you have to tune into what they want, what they need, and say, okay, let's sit down, let's talk about this. let me give you some information. Let me give you a suggestion or suggestions in relation to how you might be able to sort this out. And that's all I seek to do, really. And specifically, I mean, you were talking about fast earlier on with Wendy. I don't know what contribution I can make there, to be honest, other than talking to people who are ex-colleagues of mine or people who are serving police officers now, and telling them about the sort of thing that I'm talking to you about now. And that may or may not help them. It may not work for them, but that's not, and I don't mean this in a negative way, that's not my responsibility, because I can't force anybody to do anything. All I can do is give them that stuff, if you want to call it that, and try and help them to use it. So I'm really looking forward to the fast thing because of the fact that I don't know exactly what the contribution is that I can make, but hopefully it can be a positive one.
And I think, yes, any information that we can share, I'm passionate about the kind of concept of informed consent, that we need information in order to be able to choose. Because if we don't have information, we're not able to make the best choices that, and we might choose things that we wouldn't otherwise have chosen, but we didn't have the information, so we weren't able. It's like you're saying about having access to the parts of us that we maybe don't know we have. Once we know we have them, once that light has been shone on them, or you've said, but you already have this, all we want to do together is polish it up or hone it or develop it. But once people have that whole buffet of information, so it might be yours that works for some people, and it might be somebody else's that works for somebody else. But I have it there in front of me, and I can go up and I can dip in and I can have a taste of this one and a taste of that one and decide, actually, this one's the one that's right for me right now. Maybe later I'll have some of that. But I love to be able to put it all where people can see it and people can browse and find out what feels right for them.
Well, using the buffet analogy, I'd never thought of that before, actually, to be honest. But if there's stuff on the table, right, and this is just literally off the top of my head, I'm thinking of this now. There's stuff on the table that you see sandwiches. You've had sandwiches before. You see those little vol au vent things. You've had them before, but you like them. You know they're there. That's an okay type thing. Or you see something you've never had before, some sort of exotic dish, or it might be simple little something that's never occurred to you. Oh, well, that's interesting. That's interesting there. And the point I'm making here in using that analogy is the fact that I don't profess for 1 second to have all the answers. I'm saying about the fact is, if we sat down together, you may sort of say something to me that's going to set me off and think, have you ever thought of that? Have you ever thought of maybe using that in this particular way? Now, it's not something I've sort of worked on or a concept of mine, but between the two of us, we've then worked out something which could be beneficial to you and possibly to me as well. And I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. That's useful. That's positive. That's something that can be used now or in the future. So, yeah, I mean, stick to this buffet now. There's stuff on that table I've never seen. And then I'm going to be interested because I'm fascinated by people. That's why I do all this sort of thing, really, to be honest. There's stuff on there that I can use and I can maybe use with somebody else and say, I was talking to someone 2 weeks ago, right? And we had this conversation. And what do you think about this? Because it's all about discovering. It's all about trying to find out what's available. And I don't know all those answers. I know a lot of them, to be honest with you. Going back to this not being shy, I mean, I am intelligent. I do talk half decent, as they says in Cardiff. So it's sort of a matter of putting those things together. And I find that exciting. That's fascinating, really, because it's just as useful for me in many respects because of my fascination with people. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm passionate. I'm fascinated with people and what's going on inside other people, and how do you see the world, and what way do you see it, and what gifts do you bring, and what is your unique take? And like your friend Fritz, and how creative he is. He writes words, he makes images, as you do as well. And to be able to share those, I think being able to share things as well in all of the ways that you do it through words, you do it through spoken word, through presentations, through videos. There's going to be something in there for everybody, isn't there? because we all have our different learning styles, our different way of accessing information, different way of understanding it and processing it. So I think that really, the image speaks 1,000 words. It gives us so much, doesn't it? So much selection for anyone.
Interestingly enough, oh, sorry, my wife's waving to me at the moment now. She just had her hair done. She's very, very pleased.
Oh, excited. Don't say that to the people in England. They still can't go to the hairdresser.
Oh, sorry, forget it. Sorry. My wife hasn't spoken to the hairdresser. All right, we leave that one. But it's... sorry, I've lost my train of thought now because she's waving to me through the window. It's to do with giving people... It's not an expression I particularly like. It's a bit sort of trainery, but like a suite of things that they can choose from. You know, it's not a matter of me dictating what bits they take, really. But I'm more than happy to sit down with them and say, hey, how about this? How about that? Suggestions. And maybe they don't work, but again, we're going around the same circle again. Is it then a failure if it doesn't work for them? No, it's not, because you've put something to bed, you've put something to one side, and you can try something else. Or you can amend that or change that slightly to make it a success rather than a failure. So it's just this process of interacting with people. And this is why, we were talking about this before, I don't do anything online at the moment because of the fact I so much feel that if you do a presentation which is about interpersonal issues with people, you have to have that opportunity to be in the same room as other human beings, be it one person or be it a number of people. The reach of this is fantastic. This can be seen anywhere in the world now, which is an absolutely mind-blowing thing to me. But it still doesn't mean that you can have that interpersonal contact with people. And I think it's hugely important if you're trying to get them to come out, if you're trying to get them to tell you about the things that cause them trouble or the things that they can say which might help other people in that particular room.
I think we've been so fortunate, as Jamie McCanch of See No Bounds was saying in our live that we were on last night, 100 years ago, there was the Spanish flu. And so another pandemic, and people were going through that situation, but didn't have what we have now, the technology that we have now. So we're very, very fortunate to have it. But I think we also need to acknowledge that it isn't the same when we want interpersonal, real, deep connections, you know, to acknowledge that we are still missing that, and that can be something that is piling on our roof and that we need maybe to look at and find ways to address, because we are such social beings. It's part of our makeup to have those connections. And like you say, they're part of what helps us to explore issues, because we talk about them. So it's okay to say, it's okay to bring them out into the open where we can discuss them. And then I learn from you, you learn from me, we grow together.
Learning with them from each other, that's the main thing. I've got that underlined on one of the pages, saying it's all about learning with and from each other.
Yeah.
And interestingly,
Neil,
sorry, go on.
No, carry on.
Interestingly enough, another sort of part of what I do now, which is part of my passion, that long-held passion, is I work with different trainers doing what I call real-life role play. And it's interesting, if you like, what happens is in a training session, right, somebody comes along, we're going to do some role play now, and everyone goes, oh, because I want to play Mrs. Jones, who's got the cat stuck up the tree and all that sort of thing. And what I do is I come along and I will put together with the trainer a number of scenarios to actually go through, and all those people have to do then. This is more of a professional thing rather than a personal thing. But it's all still about development. And I will be a particular character, and all they've got to do is do their job. They've got to deal with it as best as they can. And we have a feedback session afterwards, and we have a bit of a debrief, and we say, okay, what happened there? What should you have been looking for? What did you do well? What you could have maybe done a little bit better, sort of thing, And the feedback that we've had from doing that has been fantastic. And the reason being is because there's loads and loads of big companies up in London who do this, and they charge you thousands and thousands of pounds, which puts it, other than big corporations, it puts it out of their reach anyway. but it's to all intents and purposes, because of the price, it's a new thing that these people have been through. And we've worked with housing associations, we've worked with the Welsh Assembly and lots of other people. And the feedback you get, and you ask for honest feedback, and people say, I was really dreading this, but I really enjoyed it, because they don't have to pretend to be somebody else. They just are their self. I do the pretending, if you like. And the point I'm making here in relation to what we were just talking about is it's real. It's interaction between two human beings. So I'm actually walking up to you and saying, hello, can you do this for me, please? And then people behave as they would. Because we're social animals. We like being around each other. And to a great extent, this has been quite a strange year for that reason, because of the fact that we've all been kept away from each other type thing, you know. So we're hoping to go back later in the year now and start doing that again, because not just because I enjoy it and because Vince enjoys it, but because of the fact that it obviously is a really, really good way to interact with people and help them to learn. And you can apply the professional side of that to the stuff we've been talking about for the last however long. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze now. No, it's all right. I think it's gone away now. Nope. Excuse me. Nope. Oh, it's better. Proves it's live, doesn't it? You know. So yeah, you can apply those things to all the things we've just been talking about.
And often we need that opportunity to have learned something, but then to put it into practice in a safe space, for lack of a better term, but just in a setting where we can practice it before it's real, before, you know, we're faced with a real person that we're dealing with, rather than a scenario that we're dealing with, rather than an actor. But it's really good.
That's what the whole thing is about, because you say to them, you set it up in the beginning, you say, listen, if you're gonna cock this up, do it now, right? Because this is the place for you to do it, because this is where you will, you're with people, you know, you can learn from what it is that you do. And again, not a failure, but just an opportunity to learn. And you already have brain memory or muscle memory in relation to something similar to this when it actually really happens to you in life. And the things that we do are quite outlandish and they're quite over the top, but we explain that and say, this is probably the worst that you could come into contact with in this particular area. So when something lesser of the same nature comes along, you're going to go, and you're going to get it right. And it's all, and even the things I was talking about earlier on about sticking in the box and all that, and how to manage issues and how to de-stress yourself and keep yourself from going into that particular place. It's all just muscle memory for your brain. It's just a matter of, I use the elephants and I use the stick in the box and I use all these other metaphors and these silly little things for one reason only, not because I'm particularly childish. I suppose I can be on occasions, but because you have a childlike memory, which actually creates pictures in your brain. And if somebody says to you, well, this has happened now, which we were talking previously about the power of stop. At a particular point, you come up in, you either hit the wall or you're just about to hit the wall. Stop. You can't keep going, because all you're going to do is hurt your face. If you then have the opportunity to take literally 30 seconds at this particular point here, you could save yourself a huge amount of time and grief at the other end by just stop. What do I need to do now? What can I discard? That's what I'm going to put my energy into. And these people, when they're doing the training with us, it's a bit cruel, really, to be honest, because I can be a little bit over the top. And I'm amazed at how well the majority of them deal with it. Genuinely. That's not just sort of, hoping somebody's watching and saying, oh, we give him some more work. I mean, genuinely amazed at how they adapt and they cope. When I say to them, I said, don't rush. You set the pace. Unless the pace is set for you, somebody's been attacked there and then, you just instinctively do whatever you're trained to do. But other than that, you set the pace. And it's amazing how well a lot of them control me. And I allow them to control me. If they do the right thing, I say to them, I say, well, I will react. I will do whatever, depending on what you do. You do it wrong, and I'll take you down that road. You do it right, and I'll take you up that road, sort of thing.
And
Anyway,
I think
I want to tell you about that because I love doing it.
I think that is such an important aspect of it. Do it at the right pace for you, because I've seen a similar kind of role play, the real life role play done, where people have, you know, the person who's doing the acting, the trainer, they are hamming it in order to make it an extreme situation so that the person can really learn and have the tools. And the person, I've seen them panicking, and I've seen them thinking, I should be doing something, you know, the shoulds. There must be something that I should be doing here, when actually what they should be doing is pause, take a breath, know that this person is being impossible, and that's fine. You have the tools within you, and the tools might be, okay, I'm just going to leave you to be impossible for 5 minutes, then I'll come back when you've calmed down, or whatever. But I'm sure that they enjoy it, because I'm sure that you do it with humor.
It's got to be done with, some of them are quite sad. There's this scenario that I do that I really enjoy. It sounds like a funny thing to say, enjoy doing, but I just find it so interesting to do. And there's this fella who's, he's come into whatever environment, and his wife is suffering from Alzheimer's. And he's at the end of his tether, and he's a little old bloke, and he's taken to drinking, and he doesn't know how to cope anymore. And the empathic, is it? What's the word?
It's either empathetic,
empathic, we call it, right? Attitude of those people towards this character, not towards me, but towards him, towards his predicament, is absolutely fantastic. And sometimes when I'm doing it and I'm thinking, God, they're doing so well. They are tuning into what this person is actually telling them. And the reason I think this is important in the context of what we've been talking about is because it's about that interaction, and it's about people learning and taking on board what it is that they've experienced, the thing that they've just done, and growing through that experience. And if they come across that again, they're more able to cope. And again, I know it's boring, but I go back to the same thing. It relieves stress. It's all about keeping that stress level, by whatever means, as low as possible, because that's the way that you keep on the right track rather than on the wrong track.
And I think also about giving ourselves permission to just be ourselves and to be human, so that if we're in that moment, and I've said about the ones I've watched where people have just gone into a panic moment, if they could just, oh, what would I do is just as a human being, forget my role, just as a human being for a moment. And particularly because we're aiming to work on a person-centered basis in most ways now, so you need to be human. How do I just connect with this person? How do I just hear this person and let this person feel heard? Which will dissipate so much. But
that also is down to the skills or the listening ability of the person who's doing the role play, because you give people hooks. And if they don't take those hooks, there's nothing you can do. You try and lead them verbally into a certain direction, right? And you give them clues in relation to where they should be going. But if somebody starts to panic, then my role is never, ever to pile on that panic, even in that safe environment. My role is to actually change direction then and say, okay, and then give them something else. And take them away from the area that's causing them the concerns, because I'm not there to wind them up. I'm there to try and help them to perform properly.
I meant the person, not the character in the role play, but the person learning from the role play, that they can give themselves permission to just be human and to forget about the work role, the professional role, because actually our professional role should be based on humanity anyway, I think.
Yeah.
So just to remember, I'm a human, they're human. How do I help them feel heard? Yeah, so giving themselves permission to be themselves, to be a human being, to connect with, because I think that's really as well what you're teaching people. It's okay to connect.
It's okay to say, and it's okay to connect. We got two.
Yeah. And on that note, Nigel, I'd like to say a huge thank you for being such a wonderful guest today. It's been a joy and a delight to have you in the group. Thank you so much.
And it's been really nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Robin. I've got an awful lot off my chest, and hopefully some people out there have learned something that they didn't know before we started. That's my aim and objective.
I'm sure, and I'm sure it's a lot of food for thought and a lot of I like the thought of kind of, oh, wow, it opens things up. It shines a light into areas that might before have been feeling a little bit complex and convoluted. But yes, I think it helps us to just step back and see things more clearly. So thank you so much. It's been a joy and a pleasure. And thank you so much for everybody who has been watching, who's joined us this morning, or who is going to then be watching on a replay. If you, oh, we've got some comments here, just caught you at the end, looking forward to the recording. I was just going to say, if anybody watches the replay, just stick in a hashtag replay, and feel free to post comments, post questions, and I'm sure that either myself or Nigel will be able to respond. So see you next time. Bye for now.